Welcome back, everyone. We're really diving deep today. We've got this lost microcassette recording, and it's from this guy, Glen Jason Hobbs.
Yeah, this is really unique source material. We get to hear Glenn's actual voice, his thoughts, like completely unfiltered.
And what's so wild is we can compare what he says on the recording to what we know about his life, thanks to the FSM timeline.
The timeline's a huge help. It lays out Glenn's whole life and Luke McGowan's too. Remember, Glenn was born March 21st, 1975, in Tarzana, California.
Right, and Luke was born December 20th, 1974, in Northridge. So they were basically growing up at the same time, just a little ways apart.
Exactly. And their lives, as you know, if you've been following the deep dives, their lives become really intertwined.
So this microcassette, it's like we're eavesdropping on Glenn during this specific moment in time, a moment we can figure out based on what he talks about.
Right, and that's what we're going to try to do today. We're going to listen to Glenn's story and try to figure out what was going on in his life by using the timeline.
It's like a puzzle. We're looking for the connections, the missing pieces.
And ultimately trying to understand Glenn, his mind. What was he going through at that time?
Okay, so diving right in, this recording is full of strange stuff. Like, really strange. But one thing that jumped out at us was this project Glenn was working on. This book, all about Carrie.
Yeah, it's like a scrapbook, a book. It's kind of hard to tell from how he describes it, but he's really into it. Like, putting a lot of effort into it.
He talks about using newspaper clippings, headlines, and he's pulling them from all over. Like, Carrie Mann is urging everybody selling body parts out of the US to come back and hit it with a hammer before you eat it. I mean, what?
It's intense. And then right next to that, he's got something about, Willie describes Clinton advance, and Willie uses TV show to discuss sexual encounter. I mean, talk about a mix of stuff.
It's so random. Like, what does any of this have to do with Carrie?
Well, that's the question, right? But if we look at the timeline,
Yeah.
Glenn was definitely an artistic guy.
Yeah, total art kid. Drawing, sculpture, collages, computer art. He even did marbling, which, if you haven't tried it, it's pretty cool.
So this Carrie book, it kind of fits him with his style. Like he's grabbing these random things and trying to put them together, makes something new.
Maybe he's trying to make a statement, like social commentary or something.
Maybe. Or maybe it's just his way of expressing himself. It's hard to say. But then there's this other part that's even weirder.
What's that?
He was going to show this book to a girl named Carrie at Safeway.
Seriously, he planned that out.
Yeah, he had this whole thing in his head. He'd see her sitting on the picnic bench, and he'd go up and pretend to be reading his Carrie book, hoping she'd notice.
Wow. And did he do it?
Nope. He chickened out. He thought she'd think he was weird. Or stalk her, even. He mentions a time at the mall when security got called on him. Doesn't sound like a good experience.
Oh, man. That's tough. I mean, you can kind of see his thought process, right?
Yeah. He wants to connect with this girl, but he's also super afraid of rejection.
Which makes sense if you think about it. We all have those fears.
Totally. And the timeline actually mentions Glenn being a bit of a class clown. Like to tease people.
So maybe this whole Carrie thing was his way of, like, breaking the ice. In a really, really strange way.
Could be. But it backfired. And we're left with just this recording and this glimpse into Glenn's anxieties and hopes.
Okay. So, besides the Carrie book, another thing that comes up a lot in the recording is this feeling Glenn has that he's being watched.
Yeah, big time. He talks about the cops and the FBI being after him, like they're constantly watching his apartment.
And he describes hearing these strange noises, like bugs. And he thinks it's them, like they're trying to mess with his head.
Yeah, it gets pretty intense. He's convinced they think he's hallucinating, but he knows they're really there. It's chilling, listening to it.
Now, the timeline doesn't specifically mention Glenn being paranoid around this time, at least not in those exact words.
Right, but later on, there are some incidents, like he got charged with domestic violence, and then there was a whole thing with a female cop.
Do you think that could be connected to this feeling of being watched?
It's hard to say for sure, but it definitely makes you wonder. Like, maybe this feeling of being targeted, it was always there, under the surface.
And maybe those later incidents, they were influenced by that feeling. Or maybe they made it worse.
It's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, but it's definitely something to think about.
It makes you think about how our past experiences, our fears, they can shape how we react in the present.
Absolutely. And this recording, it gives us a glimpse into Glenn's mindset, what he was afraid of. And it helps us understand those later events in a new light.
Okay, so there's this other part of the recording that's really, really strange. Glenn talks about, like, jumping fences, and he thinks the FBI is chasing him.
Right, and this is where it gets really weird. he's not just jumping fences, he's imagining them. Like barbed wire fences that aren't actually there.
What? And then he gets shot, well, not really shot, more like hit with something, probably a rubber bullet or something.
And he falls down and pretends to be dead. And the whole time he's thinking about how the FBI must be impressed with his moves. Or how he could sue the government for, like, wrongful injury or something.
I mean, that's some next level stuff. It's like he's living in a movie. And he's the star.
Right. And the crazy thing is, he even says something about a witchcraft spell being canceled. Because they, whoever they are, knew what he was thinking.
It's like his mind is creating this whole other reality, and he's completely caught up in it.
But then, if you think about it, Glen was always into risky stuff. The timeline talks about him racing BMX bikes. He was known as a stuntman in acting.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. So this whole fence jumping thing, maybe it's just an extension of that, like he's always pushing his limits.
Could be. But it's also mixed in with this paranoia, this fear of being watched.
Like his sense of adventure got twisted into something darker.
Exactly. It's a fascinating, but also pretty disturbing look into how his mind was working at that time.
Okay, so hold on, because this next part, it threw me for a loop. Glen starts talking about making a movie. And he says that a story he told before about being jumped, it was all fake.
Yeah, this is where it gets tricky. He kind of contradicts himself. Like, was he really being chased? Or was it all just part of this movie he was making?
It makes you wonder if anything he's saying is real.
Right. But then he goes on to describe cutting his own hair with a knife, like giving himself a fade haircut with a flat top, just to create a look for the movie.
And he even makes up a story for his friend Todd Ledford about how he got ear snaps.
It's like he's constantly creating, constantly putting on a show, even if it's just for himself.
And you know, that kind of fits with what we know about him, the artistic side, the need for attention.
Yeah, maybe this movie was just another way for him to express himself, to control the narrative of his life, even if it was all made up.
It's sad, in a way, like he's creating this whole fantasy world to escape from reality.
Maybe. Or maybe it's just blurring the lines between reality and fiction. Which, you know, a lot of artists do that.
True. Okay, there's also this one part where Glen talks about having psychic conversations and seeing things that aren't really there. Like he talks about this guy, Dave, who has big eyes, and then Glen pokes them and they shrink into black pearls. I mean, what?
Yeah, that's a pretty wild image. It definitely suggests that his perception was off.
You think maybe drugs?
It's possible. We know from the timeline that Glen started using psychedelics later on, with Luke and some other people, around 1992.
Right, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that he was experimenting with stuff around this time too.
Exactly. And that could explain some of the things he's describing. The altered perceptions, the feeling of being disconnected from reality.
Okay, so there's another theme that comes up a lot. Glen's constantly losing stuff. His leather jacket, his wallet, even jewelry.
Yeah, it's almost obsessive. He keeps going back to the trails, looking for his jacket. And he mentions planting jewelry, like it's some kind of clue.
You think he was just disorganized? Or is there something more to it?
Well, remember how he talked about making a movie? Maybe this was part of that. Like he's leaving behind props, creating a story.
Or maybe he was paranoid. Like he thought someone was going to try and frame him for something. So he was leaving behind fake evidence.
It's definitely possible. Remember, he talked about creating alibis, making it look like he wasn't where he actually was, so maybe this was part of that same mindset.
It's so hard to tell what's real and what's not.
Right. But that's the challenge and the fascination of working with this kind of material. It's like we're getting a glimpse into a mind that's not quite tethered to reality.
Okay, then there's the train incident, where Glen tries to jump onto a moving train.
Oh yeah, that was crazy. He actually manages to hang on for a bit. But then he jumps off, and of course he's convinced the cops are watching him, either impressed or thinking he's going to get hurt.
It's like he's always performing for this imaginary audience.
Totally. And it ties back into that risk-taking behavior we talked about before. The BMX racing, the stunts.
He's pushing himself, testing his limits. But it's all tangled up with this paranoia.
Right, like he needs to prove something, not just to himself, but to this imaginary audience that's watching his every move.
And it takes a toll on him physically. Later on in the recording, he's exhausted. All messed up from the fence jumping and the train incident.
Yeah, he's confused about what time it is, he's sore, he's clearly not thinking straight.
Which makes sense if you think about it. All that running around, the stress, maybe even the drugs.
It all adds up. And it feeds into his paranoia. He's convinced he's being set up, framed for something he didn't do.
He keeps talking about planting evidence, making sure he has an alibi.
It's a classic symptom of paranoia. The feeling that everyone's out to get you, that you have to protect yourself at all costs.
It's really sad when you think about it.
It is, but it's also a reminder that mental health is complex, and sometimes people's perceptions of reality, they don't match up with what's actually happening.
Okay, so one last thing before we wrap up.
Yeah.
At the end of the recording, Glen finds a briefcase full of tapes. And there's this broken gargoyle statue.
Oh yeah, that was weird. And he takes a piece of a broken coffee mug, and he hangs it on the gargoyle's wing, to make it look like a white wing.
That's such a strange image. What do you think it means?
I don't know, but it's definitely symbolic, right? This broken creature with a makeshift wing.
It makes you think about how Glen was trying to piece together his own life from all these broken fragments.
Yeah, and maybe he was trying to find beauty in the brokenness.
That's a nice thought.
It is.
So, we've covered a lot of ground today. This microcassette recording, it's a wild ride, but it gives us such a unique insight into Glen's mind.
Absolutely, and when we combine it with the FSM timeline, we get a much fuller picture of who he was.
The timeline gives us the facts, the dates, the events.
And the recording gives us the emotions, the fears, the dreams.
It's like the two together, they tell a complete story.
A story that's messy and complicated and ultimately very human.
So, as we finish up, I want to leave you with a question. How do our experiences shape our reality?
That's a big one.
It is, but I think it's worth thinking about, especially after listening to Glen's story.
Right. And how do we deal with the things that break us? How do we find meaning in the chaos?
Those are questions we can all ask ourselves, no matter who we are.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back soon with more from the FSM timeline.
And until then, keep digging, keep exploring.